afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Washington Brief for Tuesday, November 4, 2025. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Michael Jenkins, president of the Washington Times Foundation, which sponsors this webcast. Dr. Jenkins is also president of the Washington Times Holdings, the LLC that owns the Times News organization. He has led many successful fact-finding trips to Korea for policy experts and peace initiatives to the Middle East for the Universal Peace Federation. Dr. Jenkins, welcome.
Thank you, Larry. It's great to be back together here with the Washington Brief. Our topic today is how successful were President Trump's meetings with counterparts in East Asia. This last week, I'm here in Korea at this time. It was very intense, and a lot of things happened that were unexpected. President Trump made a trade focus trip throughout Asia. He went to ASEAN and Malaysia, Japan, and came to Japan and met the new Prime Minister, Sanai Takaishi, which is a big step in a new direction for Japan. And then also came to South Korea for the talks with different leaders, including Xi Jin-Ping. And he also had a meeting with President Lee and other various meetings. We're very happy to be here to really look at this through the eyes of our experts. Our Ambassador Joseph DeTrani, as always, is our moderator. Joe is the former director of the National Counterproliferation Center and the former special envoy for the six-party talks with North Korea, and the former associate director of the National Intelligence. He's currently a senior advisor at Sandia National Laboratories. He's author of The North Korean Threat, Intelligence and Diplomacy, a personal memoir. We're very happy also to have as our regular panelist Dr. Alexandre Mansourov. Dr. Mansourov is an adjunct professor of security studies at the Edmund A. Walsh School of Foreign Service at Georgetown University. And he's also an adjunct professor of Korean studies at the School of Advanced International Studies at Johns Hopkins. We're very honored to present today our guest panelist and keynote speaker, Lieutenant General Chip Gregson. He is a member of the Council of Foreign Relations and serves on the board of advisors of the Global Taiwan Institute. He's a former Assistant Secretary of Defense for Asia and Pacific Security Affairs, where he served as Director of Asia-Pacific Security Policy in the Office of the Secretary of Defense. He is an advisor to the Roosevelt Group International Consultants, Senior Advisor to General Atomics Electromagnetic System Group, and Avocent Global Advisors. He serves as an Executive Advisor of Akira Corporation and Marubeni Corporation of Japan. He serves also as a board member of the Japan-America Society in Washington, D.C., the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology Foundation, and Peace Wins America. Serves as the director of China and the Pacific at the Center for National Interests. Formerly, he was commanding general of the Marine Corps Forces Pacific and Marine Corps Forces Central Command, where he led and managed over 70,000 Marines and sailors in the Middle East. That mission covered Afghanistan, East Africa, Asia, and the United States. He also served as commanding general of the 3rd Marine Expeditionary Force in Japan, where he was awarded the Japanese Order of the Rising Sun, the Gold and Silver Star, the Korean Order of National Security Merit Gukseon Medal, and the Republic of China Order of Resplendent Banner with Yellow Sash for his active duty and service in Asia. Very happy, Ambassador DeTrani. This is going to be a great program.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for the introduction. No, we're very fortunate to have General Gregson with us today. And as Michael indicated, what a week it's been. I mean, President Donald Trump, I mean, this man has more energy than anyone I've ever seen before. I mean, his meetings in certainly Malaysia, brokering a peace agreement between Cambodia and Thailand, moving on to Japan to meet the new prime minister, meeting with Lee Jae-myung in South Korea, talking about a nuclear-powered submarine, the U.S. providing the technology for South Korea to have that capability, and then meeting with Xi Jinping to talk about fentanyl and rare earth minerals and China buying soybeans. And this is great diplomacy at the highest level. So I think today having General Gregson with us to unpack some of these issues is very fortunate for all of us. So over to you, General Gregson.
Well, thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Thank you, Ambassador DeTrani. It's a pleasure to be here. And yes, it was rather breathless. I had the good fortune to be in Tokyo on a business trip during the same week that Donald Trump was there, and getting a hotel room was a challenge. I usually try to stay at the Okura or the Imperial Hotel, and my clients are generous, so those are quite nice hotels. The Okura was taken over as the location that President Trump and his entourage would fill. And talking to my friends at the Okura after he left, I was apologizing for not being able to get a room there, and they told me, you made out better, because we had to abuse our regular customers to entertain the presidential visit, but always in good spirits, always happy. His trip came at a time that some have called a time of intense diplomatic flexing, which is an interesting description. As usual for President Trump, it included a grab bag of topics, not all of which were on the agenda. Soybeans, nuclear submarines, computer chips, nuclear weapons tests, the Ukraine war, magnets and water, fentanyl, and major foreign investments in U.S. shipbuilding, and, quote, trillions of dollars returned to the U.S. The trip began in Southeast Asia. He inked deals with Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, Japan, and Korea. He also worked out reciprocal trade frameworks with Thailand and Vietnam. The trade agreements with Malaysia and Cambodia eliminated or significantly reduced tariffs on U.S. exports. The White House said that under these agreements, non-tariff barriers will be addressed and market access for U.S. products will be expanded. President Trump wrote in his Truth Social account that he was, quote, bringing back trillions of dollars to USA, a great trip dealing with very smart, talented, and wonderful leaders. Japan was a special stop. He arrived in Tokyo on Monday, meeting with Emperor Naruhito in the evening ahead of a bilateral summit the following day with new Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi that focused on trade, investment, and defense spending. Trump arrived at Tokyo's Haneda Airport a day after announcing a handful of deals with Southeast Asian nations. He was greeted on the tarmac by U.S. Ambassador to Japan, George Glass, and Japan's top government spokesman, Chief Cabinet Secretary Minoru Kihara. The U.S. president's arrival came as some 18,000 police officers were mobilized following a string of high-profile attacks at home and abroad targeting political figures. The prime minister, a protege of slain Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, was seeking to build a solid relationship with Trump as she looks to navigate increasing pressure from the U.S. on U.S. trade and defense issues. Speaking aboard Air Force One while en route to Tokyo on Monday, President Trump said he looked forward to meeting the prime minister. I hear phenomenal things, he said. She was a great ally and friend of Shinzo Abe, who was my friend. He was one of the best, and I know they were close, and I think philosophically they were close, which is good. It's going to be very good. That really helps Japan and the United States. The 3-day visit is his fourth to Japan as president and the first of his second term. Following a summit with Takaichi, Trump delivered a speech aboard the George Washington aircraft carrier, homeported in Japan at the U.S. Naval Base at Yokosuka. They then held a dinner with business leaders in Tokyo and met with Abe's widow, Aki. Takaiche emphasized that strengthening their country's alliance is her government's top priority. We agreed that we will work toward elevating the U.S.-Japan alliance to new heights, she said. I told him that strengthening the alliance is my administration's top priority on the diplomatic and security front. Takaiche took a page from Abe's approach to Trump by feting him with a state visit, honor guard, and a package of purchases that reportedly includes U.S. pickup trucks, soybeans, and gas. One of the pictures taken during his visit showed a parking lot filled with Ford F-150 trucks as background. In another ode to Abe, who presented Trump with a golden golf club at their first encounter, Takaiche presented him with a golden golf ball. The Japanese side also offered the U.S. side a list of candidate projects under Japan's $550 billion investment deal that saw Trump's tariffs eased, a deal that Takaiche is believed to view as unfair. During campaigning last month for the top post in her ruling Liberal Democratic Party, Takaiche said that a do-over of tariff negotiations between the two sides is not off the table. Asked Saturday if she was concerned, asked Saturday if Trump, was concerned Takaiche might eventually try to renegotiate the trade deal. Trump said it was possible, but quickly sought to play up the chances of an amicable relationship. She might, he said. Look, I'm open to whatever we have a great relationship with Japan, and we're going to have a fantastic relationship with her. From Trump's team, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and his counterpart, Trade Minister Ryusai Akazawa, two of the deal's architects, met Sunday and Monday, while Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was expected to hold talks with the Finance Ministers Satsuki Katayama for the first time. Takaiche also spotlighted Trump's commitment to shouldering more of the security burden in the alliance by emphasizing a plan to have Japan reach a target of spending 2% of gross domestic product on defense by the end of this fiscal year, effectively moving a planned hike forward by 2 years. The new prime minister also pledged to revise the country's 3 key security documents, its national defense strategy, the defense buildup program, and national security strategy, the last of which set out the current 5-year 43 trillion yen spending plan in late 2022. This accelerates the production, a nod, I believe, to recognition of the rapidly accelerating technology-driven changes to the battlefield as well as a political move. As everybody in this conference is aware, changing processes at our Pentagon, or let alone accelerating them, is exceedingly difficult. Japan has done it, and they moved the whole 4-year planning process up to 2 years. These revisions. Oh, and one other point: the U.S. produces counterpart documents to the ones I mentioned that Japan is producing, but ours are definitely not integrated. But when Japan produces these 3 documents, they have an admirable mapping exercise that you can do from topics through one document to another document to another document, and they all say the same thing, and they're all mutually supporting, which is in the planning process and government documents. I think it's an extraordinary achievement the way they do this. The revisions that they're planning are expected to clear a path for even higher defense budget amid what the Prime Minister said are significant changes in how conflicts are fought. The Prime Minister and other top officials in her government have refused to offer up a spending figure, calling the issue a sovereign decision that will be focused on the content of any hike, not the amount. Whether this will be enough to satisfy the U.S. president remains to be seen, but I predict that Japan will certainly do that. Trump has already won acquiescence from NATO countries to spend 3.5% of GDP on defense, as you know. His administration has demanded that American allies, including Japan, target a global standard of 5%. Takaiche's new defense chief, Shinjiro Koizumi, and yes, he's the son of the famous Koizumi, took up the issue when he held his first meeting with U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on Wednesday in Tokyo. I saw Koizumi later in the week coming out of the MOD building looking absolutely happy. During Trump's first stint in office, Abe was widely seen as the world leader closest to the president, meeting with and speaking over the phone with Trump dozens of times. Trump even claimed that Abe had nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2019. Takaichi, who has taken up the mantle of Abe's brand of conservatism, shares many of the late leader's views on foreign policy, including defense and wartime history. But she faces a number of hurdles in trying to replicate Abe's formula for dealing with Trump, challenges that the late prime minister never faced, including an LDP that forged a new but fragile coalition government with the Japan Innovation Party, also known as Nippon Ishin Nokai. In the House of Representatives, the power lower chamber of parliament, where she would need to win backing for many of the measures she is seeking, the LDP, Japan Innovation Party ruling bloc remains 2 seats short of a majority. So a lot of nemawashi and negotiation will be on the cards. 12 out of 10 was Donald Trump's own scoring of his summit with Xi Jin-Ping in South Korea. America's president was sounding characteristically bullish, and the world should indeed be relieved that its 2 largest economies seem to have no desire to decouple from each other, let alone haggle over the status of Taiwan. Either outcome would have imposed a heavy cost on Asia and the world. However, their agreement appears to be sketchy and temporary, and that means the planet's most important relationship will continue to be built on sand. The details of what was agreed in Busan remain hazy, a metaphor for the ever-shifting nature of the underlying diplomacy. The deal was mostly a holstering of weapons in which China agreed to postpone restrictions on exports of crucial rare earths for a year, while America will stay its tariff of 100% on Chinese goods and its threat of export controls and subsidiaries of blacklisted Chinese firms. The 2 sides also backed away from a confrontation over shipping. The talks made progress. China will once again start buying American soybeans. America will reward extra Chinese efforts to restrict chemical ingredients for fentanyl by having a 20% punitive tariff on all goods. Mr. Trump appears open to the export of some semiconductor chips, though not the most advanced. Given the hostility towards China of some in Washington, the deal could very easily have been worse. They urgently want America to decouple from its biggest geopolitical rival, but with this summit, the first since 2019, Mr. Trump has shown that he values the commercial relationship too highly to throw it away. At the same time, the president did not sacrifice Taiwan for a heap of soybeans. Unfortunately, this summit also shows how much is wrong. For one thing, the agreement leaves an American tariff of 47% on Chinese goods. In the pre-Trump world, that would have been an extraordinary level of protection. The terms of the agreement are also temporary, explicitly so in the sense that many of the terms of this deal will be reviewed in a year's time, but also implicitly because Mr. Trump sees it within his power to lash out with a tariff here or a non-tariff barrier there at any time over almost any issue. Another potential conflict is the fact that, in contrast to every other country, Trump is more than a match for America. The Busan summit came after Mr. Trump's royal procession through much of Asia, in which one leader after another showered him with praise and gifts, including a golden golf ball, as I mentioned, and one of Abe's golf clubs that he used. He also received a replica crown in Korea, and with pledges to invest billions of dollars in America in exchange for modest reprieve on tariffs. He also was asked about whether he would okay a nuclear submarine deal for Korea. Reliance on America for security and markets made retreat the only option. China is different. It can withstand American pressure. It is also retaliating in areas where America is vulnerable. Rare earths and soybeans are good examples. As it embraces the combative nature of the new trading system, Mr. Xi's project to make China more resilient has been vindicated. All this makes the Busan summit a pause rather than a conclusion. As China and America, consumed by mutual distrust, continue to tussle with each other, a row will surely break out sooner or later. The good news is that, for the first time at any rate, both sides believe they have more to gain from tolerance rather than confrontation. Thank you.
Hey, Chip, I just can't say enough about that presentation. There's so much to unpack. What a week of diplomacy, trade, tariffs, negotiations. You mentioned Taiwan. Taiwan was not a subject that was fully discussed. Certainly, the South China Sea was not fully discussed, although the president did commit to traveling to China in April of 2026. So obviously, during that visit, those very sensitive issues most likely will be discussed. But fentanyl and soybeans and rare earth metals, how Xi Jinping was able to craft a strategy to address the tariff issue from the United States. So these are all such important issues. And you focus on Japan and the visit to Japan and the new Prime Minister, Sae Taiichi. This is just a great relationship. And I think that's the highlight, isn't it, General Gregson? The visit to Tokyo, the visit to South Korea, the nuclear-powered submarines that the U.S. provide the technology to South Korea for, re-enhancing that very close alliance with Japan, further to Prime Minister Abe. Wow, what a visit. So much to unpack, and fortunately we have Dr. Mansourov who could start this discussion off. Over to you, Dr. Mansourov.
Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you very much to General Gregson for his amazing presentation, very comprehensive, in-depth, covering all the important aspects of President Trump's tour of Asia, including even the Taiwan issue. As we know, there was a follow-up of Prime Minister of Japan's meeting with some senior officials from Taiwan who visited Kyonju. And of course, the Chinese Foreign Ministry expressed a strong protest after that meeting took place, kind of signaling that she was playing with fire, because this was one of China's red lines. You know, she was touching on the core issues for Chinese national security. Again, there are two other South China Sea, as Ambassador DeTrani mentioned, as well as the disputed islands. But Prime Minister Takaichi held a very good, positive summit meeting on the sidelines of the APEC events in South Korea with President Xi Jinping. But here we will talk about President Trump's agenda and what he successfully accomplished and what didn't happen. So I'd like to actually ask you a question about the much speculated about, much talked about non-event during that tour, and that is the much expected Kim-Trump summit, which never took place. As we know, Kim Jong-un blatantly ignored President Trump's, I would count three offers to meet with him without preconditions, which American president made on the eve of his trip, during his trip out of Tokyo. He even said he was willing to extend his visit to the Korean Peninsula by a day if Kim could spare some time to see him, and yet it didn't happen. Instead, the North Korean leader dispatched his foreign minister Chresonyi to Moscow, where she met with President Putin, and then she proceeded to Belarus, where she met with the last dictator of Europe, Alexander Lukashenko. Again, that kind of public dismissal of the US president's office to meet and discuss the most important security issues on the peninsula from Kim Jong-un kind of raises the question, at least in my mind, is Pyongyang still interested in the normalization of relations with the United States, given what we just observed, that kind of attitude? Is dialogue with North Korea still possible? I know the president says yes, can be done within months. I mean, actually, he at one point he even said he could meet Kim Jong-un before the end of this year. But clearly, this window of opportunity is closed for now. So, General, what do you think? I mean, is North Korea still interested in having normal relations with the United States? Under what conditions? Towards what ends? Given what we just saw, the biggest non-event of the Asia tour of the president.
Well, Ambassador DeTrani, of the members of this panel, knows far more about negotiating with North Korea than the rest of us put together, I think. But I have never been able to put myself inside the Kim Jong, Kim Jong, any of the Kims in their thinking process. And my experience in negotiations with the North Koreans is that as long as we were in a comfortable place like Geneva or New York City or something, they would take a 2-week dialogue and stretch it into a full 2 weeks. There was no, early retirement or early leaving planned, and generally the conclusions were non-productive. So I can only imagine that Kim was taking indications of what he should do from Jin-Ping and others and go forward. The other thing that was not mentioned in this, the other thing that didn't happen was any talk with China about their support for Russia in Ukraine. So this was a series of meetings among all. I think that there was a predestination to have a success here and not allow any unsolvable issues to interfere. President Trump does seem to have a fascination with Pyongyang. If there's a opportunity later, I would imagine something might be set up separately, but it might not be a bad idea that stays separate from the series of summits that were just concluded.
Okay. If you don't mind, may I follow up?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Alexander. Go ahead.
Okay. And the other question related to it I have is about the future of denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. We know that the United States reportedly agreed to allow the Republic of Korea to enrich uranium above 20%, as well as to reprocess the plutonium under still not signed yet, but very close to conclusion, the 123 agreement, which clearly would enable Seoul to build up its own stockpile of fissile material. Now, in addition to that, of course, Ambassador DeTrani mentioned that the United States agreed to build a nuclear submarine for the Republic of Korea, basically transferring that critical technology, nuclear technology, to the Republic of Korea. Of course, we heard all these statements about the United States basically deciding to resume the nuclear testing in response to what they perceive the other countries may or may not be doing in this area. Now, we know that Russia took off the table the issue of denuclearization of North Korea as far as their government position is concerned. So they're no longer demanding North Korea to denuclearize. Now, China, interestingly enough, in President Xi Jinping's talks with President Li Jae-myung, the Chinese side basically never mentioned denuclearization. There are conflicting reports. The South Korean reports indicate that President Lee raised that question. The Chinese official reports on that summit indicate that, you know, this issue was not discussed. They never mentioned it. But clearly there's signaling in the official kind of communications that they're not going to pressure North Korea on the issue of denuclearization. So considering all these new developments, you know, the US relaxation of controls on the nuclear developments in South Korea, new attitude in China and Russia. I mean, do you think that denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula is dead? I mean, what does it mean if it's dead indeed? What does it mean for the global non-proliferation regime? If not only, you know, we are going not to pressure North Korea in the United Front to refrain, abandon, you know, freeze and decease with its nuclear ambitions, but if we start kind of facilitating nuclear developments in South Korea, I mean, nuclear non-proliferation regime, will it be hurt on the one hand, and on the other hand, of course, are we going to see a nuclear arms race now in Northeast Asia, you know, with not only North Korea building up nuclear arsenals, but now South Korea kind of laying the foundation, acquiring, you know, critical nuclear technology, nuclear weapons technologies, you know, building up nuclear stockpile. I mean, the United States leading the field with nuclear testing. I mean, so are we going to see a new nuclear arms race, not only in Northeast Asia, but around the world, if that's what's going to happen? So what is your sense, General? Again, is denuclearization dead? Is nuclear non-proliferation regime going to suffer? Are we going to see a new nuclear arms race in Northeast Asia and worldwide?
Well, nothing ever dies. On North Korea's nuclear status, we do not and should not ever legitimate it as a legal status. As a matter of practical operations, we need to recognize that they that they do have nuclear weapons, but that doesn't mean we should ever sanction it. Secondly, the question of nuclear power of a nuclear submarine for South Korea. I understand what was said at the meeting with President Trump, but South Korea is about to face sticker shock when they learn what's necessary to create to have a nuclear arsenal, and how much that have a nuclear capability like the submarine, and how much it costs. And the question is, what gain do you get? What does nuclear propulsion on a submarine do for South Korea, given their security situation with North Korea, that a conventional submarine with the same weapons does for South Korea? All this remains to be seen. South Korea achieving a nuclear weapons status would be a real blow to non-proliferation. It would also be a real blow to the alliance. We have extended deterrence guarantees for South Korea and Japan and the Philippines and our other allies, for that matter. Secondly, the logical position for South Korea is that the United States is that if South Korea, South Korea needs to recognize that there is no military utility to having nuclear weapons in South Korea. there are a lot of downsides. You have to build an infrastructure to support them. You have to build an infrastructure to protect them. So there's a lot of it's not a simple matter. Secondly, the United States position should be that to South Korea that there is no utility, there is no military gain for putting nuclear weapons on the peninsula. But if you, South Korea, need nuclear weapons on the peninsula for a valid political reason, then the United States can put nuclear weapons on the peninsula, but understand that they will be U.S. weapons under U.S. control because we have the rest of the arsenal and we have other allies to consider.
General Gregson, no, I like your answer to very good questions from Dr. Mansourov. But you're absolutely right. I mean, North Korea made it very clear that they wanted to be accepted and as one of the conditions, and that's probably why they weren't amenable to a meeting at the DMZ. They weren't going to get that from the President of the United States, and they should not get that from the President of the United States. We should not accept North Korea as a nuclear weapon state, and our goal should be complete verifiable denuclearization. Look, I think we all realize North Korea is not going to give up its nuclear weapons. I mean, come on. Why would they do that? If they're looking at what happened in Ukraine with security assurances, give up your nuclear weapons and we'll give you security assurances. Well, they gave up their nuclear weapons and those security assurances went by the wayside. So North Korea is not going to give up, but that doesn't mean we, the United States, and hopefully our allies and partners, do not accept North Korea as a nuclear weapon state. And I think that's the issue. Does that mean we cannot negotiate with North Korea? I think this is where Kim Jong-un really needs to really consider this issue. It's in North Korea's advantage to negotiate with the United States. It's in North Korea's advantage to have a normal relationship with the United States. What that would mean for their economy, for the people, for just existing in North Korea, it would be immense. So there's so much on the table there. That doesn't mean the United States has to put up complete verifiable denuclearization immediately. We can get into a process. That's the question of, and that's the issue of creativity. Let's be creative in our negotiations with North Korea. And I think Kim Jong-un has to understand that. But I think, as General Gregson alluded to a few minutes ago, I don't think Russia and China were overly excited about Kim Jong-un meeting with President Donald Trump at the DMZ. I don't think they saw that in their interest. I mean, having this axis of authoritarian states together and permitting Kim Jong-un to feel emboldened because of this relationship, I think that's important for North Korea, but it's also important for Russia and for the People's Republic of China. Look, General Gregson mentioned Ukraine, the war in Ukraine. I mean, although the president did allude to that, we're saying that maybe we and the People's Republic of China could work together to get the Russian Federation, to get Vladimir Putin to agree to meet with President Zelensky and talk about some sort of a ceasefire, a movement towards maybe a peace agreement, and so forth. The likelihood of that, I mean, I think it's kind of low, to be honest with you. I think the sense is that China has been supportive of Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine. I don't think there's. I think former Secretary of State Blinken made it very clear that was and I believe continues to be the U.S. position, that Russia continues, China continues, if you will, to support Russia in its war of aggression in Ukraine. So my question to you, General Gregson, is this. On the whole question of, Dr. Mansourov alluded to this, the whole question of proliferation as it relates to a nuclear-powered submarine and the U.S. providing the technology, although I believe we haven't agreed on the fuel issue. I mean, will South Korea now be enriching its own uranium, reprocessing spent fuel rods, or will that fuel come from the United States and others, and so forth? So that's a big issue that has to be addressed, and other issues obviously have to be addressed. But what about the proliferation issue and the president's comments now about testing nuclear weapons? Although I think many of us believe, and I think the Secretary of Energy made it very clear over the weekend that we're not talking about critical tests. We're talking about simulated tests, things that we've been doing to ensure that our stockpile is very safe, is very potent, and is being managed in a very smart way. But does this open the gates now to other countries to say, as Dr. Mansourov alluded to, other countries to say, well, if South Korea can have nuclear-powered submarines, and we're looking at AUKUS, and the same thing for Australia, why can't we be reprocessing spent fuel rods, enriching uranium, and so forth? What does that mean? And the Arms Control Association has come out very strongly over the weekend saying this is not in our interest to see this element of proliferation or the potential for proliferation. What are your views on the whole question of nuclear proliferation, General Gregson?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned AUKUS. We're going to be providing the technology, et cetera, to Australia to be able to build, to possess nuclear submarines. And this is decidedly in our favor because conventional submarines were fine if you're defending the coast of Australia, but if Australia wants to make a contribution to contingencies and to deterrence that's further from their shores, then they need the range of nuclear submarines to get there. We in Great Britain have certified this as a valid reason now, so AUKUS is going forward.
Mm-hmm.
If South Korea decides that they want to expend the national resources to achieve a nuclear submarine capability, they will be able to do it, and we should help with it to make sure that the proper precautions, security, and everything are taken. But this also creates an alliance problem for us because which of our other allies want nuclear submarines? Japan would be about a day behind South Korea in developing the technology for a nuclear submarine if South Korea wants to have a nuclear submarine. So this is one of those wonderful issues to occupy faculty lounges around the universities for a long time, and we'll go forward. Well, I wanted to touch on something else that was mentioned about working with North Korea. Many practitioners of policy scoff at soft power and diminish it, but I submit that with the developments in North Korea, where they actually have an underground capitalist economy going on, indicate that even for the loyal North Koreans, they need to have commerce, they need to have enough food to eat, and all these other things. If we were to have a concerted policy in the information that we provide into North Korea, both overt and covert, and the efforts that we provide that would strengthen the underground economy in North Korea, we start to put Kim Jong-un in a bind. He's got to either liberalize or lose the loyalty. This is a great oversimplification, but the only other choice we have is to continue to wring our hands and worry about North Korea and say, "Oh, this is terrible." It's all these things. We need to be able to find a way to push back, and there are ways to push back clandestinely, and we need to pursue those. And by the way, North Korea, as you well know, North Korea has a worldwide network of citizens, and both officially posted overseas and unofficially overseas as laborers and everything, sending remittances, information, and everything else back to the mothership in Pyongyang. This is in addition to being a sovereign country with odious habits and policies, this is a global criminal network, and there's ways to dry this up. As you well know, we had the episode where the UN put sanctions on North Korea and directed all the other members of the UN to send their resident North Korean laborers back home within 2 years. Shortly after that, Kim's brother was assassinated with VX, the world's worst nerve gas, in Kuala Lumpur. That was sending a message to the rest of the region: do not mess with our people. The VX attack was sophisticated in the extreme. It's a vicious gas, and the only person that got hurt was Kim Jong, I think his name was now. The two people that attacked him were not hurt. So there's a sophistication here that's frightening. We need to recognize what we're dealing with here. It's not just a hermit kingdom. It's a hermit kingdom. It's a kingdom with tentacles all into all the nation's capitals and all their business centers, and they bring things home.
Well, what outstanding comments, General Gregson. You spoke about North Korea as a criminal state. I mean, their business with illicit activities, counterfeiting, whether it's cigarettes, pharmaceuticals, you go down the list, what they're doing on cyber. I mean, you just go down. But you also mentioned Kim Jong-nam, how he went after his brother, and in the airport in Kuala Lumpur, actually assassinated him, killed him, and we know what happened to Jang Song-tak, his uncle, and so forth. So we're dealing with a very brutal regime, a government that treats its not only relatives and senior leaders harshly, but its people. And this is such an important issue. Do you see change? I mean, I want to go to Alexander, but we always talked about normalizing a relationship with the United States, and that would maybe be conducive to changing North Korea's approach, being more concerned about its citizens, and looking to work, and not only on nuclear issues and military issues, but also issues related to the well-being of its people. Do you see that? Do you see a trend moving in that direction if North Korea normalizes or moves towards a normal relationship with the United States?
If we could engineer something that is of a benefit to the ruling elite in North Korea of normalization, then normalization carefully done would get us more leverage, more penetration into North Korea, more chance to work on things that affect the people in North Korea, and through the people in North Korea finally affect something with the dictatorship. But this is there's a series of gigantic ifs all through this. If there was a chance to normalize relations and be able to get an embassy in North Korea with the usual staff that an embassy brings and all those things, absent any compelling objections, I would think that the United States ought to go ahead and do that and see where we go. We've proven that isolation of North Korea is of limited effect. For one thing, they developed nuclear weapons. They had to invite Dr. Hig Stecker, if I'm remembering correctly, to North Korea to show him that they had centrifuges running that we didn't know they had running. So this is the land of ever increasing surprises in the security area and things. This is a terrifically wicked problem, and I don't pretend to have solutions. I just have suspicions about this.
Thank you, General Gregson. Please, Dr. Mansourov.
Thank you, Ambassador. And I'd like to make 2 points, one about signaling and the other about kind of morality. On the signaling issue, when the Secretary of War visits the DMZ with his South Korean counterpart to send a message of peace, I'm not sure that's the way the North Koreans see it. Just like if a North Korean defense minister were to visit the DMZ with his Russian counterpart to send us a signal of peace, I don't believe that we would see it, we would interpret it as a message of peace. The same way when, we almost went to war trying to stop North Korea from enriching uranium. I mean, we actually bombed Iran because we didn't want them to increase the uranium enrichment beyond a certain level. The same with plutonium reprocessing. And yet now we're saying it's okay for South Korea to basically enrich uranium, to reprocess plutonium. And by the way, we'll give you a nuclear submarine. So again, it's to me, it sounds hypocritical because when we complain about Russians sharing nuclear technologies with North Korea, and in response, we do the same, justifying it by the nature of the regime in Pyongyang. To me, unfortunately, we're living in a different world now, the world of realpolitik, where, the globalization justifications from the previous age, when we all sang Kumbaya, they will no longer fly. That's on the signaling issue. Speaking about the regimes, whether we like them or not, the way they treat their people, whether we like them, we like it or not, I would say in very strong terms that the continued arbitrary prosecution and illegal detention in inhumane conditions of Mother Moon in South Korea is an international outrage. She is one of the greatest religious leaders of Korea of all times, and yet she is being prosecuted by the man who, by the way, gifted a golden crown to another man so that he could get better terms of an investment deal for what we now learn South Korean private companies. Yes, here in the United States. Of course, in return, he was called one of the greatest presidents of South Korea, which is, I don't know where that's coming from. But to me, it's a shame. It's a shame that the United States government could demand an immediate release of some political prisoners in Belarus, who happen to be KGB agents, provocateurs working for the government, and yet we want them to be immediately released. We would demand the immediate release of some, North Korean criminals, and yet our government would not say a word in defense of Mother Moon, who is being prosecuted, is being kept in jail, treated harshly. This is an 86-year-old grandmother who is being treated harshly in inhumane conditions for political reasons, again, by someone who is called as the greatest president of South Korea, which is ridiculous in my opinion.
So General Gregson, any comments on what Dr. Mansourov just mentioned?
I generally agree on on the imprisonment of Mother Moon issue, but it's clear that the different leaders of the different countries involved in this trip were determined to have that Washington goal, the good meeting. And we did have good meetings, and unpleasant topics weren't brought up. On the giving of a nuclear submarine to the ROK, I'd like to see an awful lot of details to this. We have major problems in our shipbuilding industry. Like it is flat. It's on its back. A lot of the investment from the Republic of Korea and Japan into the United States is designed to reinvigorate our shipbuilding industry, primarily with Korean companies and Japanese companies doing the shipbuilding. So it's not like we have a spare nuclear submarine that we can send to North Korea. We don't have enough for our own Navy, and the other ships that we need, surface ships primarily for the United States Navy, are woefully lacking because the industry is woefully lacking. On Secretary of Defense Hegseth to the DMZ, I think it's a visit to that observation point on the DMZ is de rigueur for every American diplomat going to South Korea. They want to go there, I guess, and look lantern-jawed into the north and see a unique part of the world for sure. But if the North Koreans reciprocated with their defense minister and the Russian defense minister coming down there, I'm sure we would take note of it. But it's how hostile an act it is to visit South Korea and to visit the what's the name of the observation post, Ambassador? It's you know the one I mean.
Yes, of course.
It's one that's made for tourists to go up there and be able to say they were able to look through big binoculars into North Korea is just part of the tour. If I don't know that Secretary Hegseth made any announcements or pronouncements when he was visiting there. As the first time he went to the Shangri-La conference, he was pretty candid with the Chinese leadership. I don't know that a similar thing happened here with the Republic of Korea, and I'm sure I missed a lot of what Ambassador Mansourov said, but we can go back and reattack.
Well, I think you covered it very well. Just a few comments, and then one final question from me, General Gregson. I thought President Donald Trump's visit, whether it was to Malaysia, whether it was Japan, whether it was South Korea, I thought the visits were all powerful, and it was more than the symbolism. A lot of substance, obviously a lot of substance. And also in Japan, meeting with the families of the abductees. I think that's keeping that issue front and center. That was always an issue for Prime Minister Abe of working and obviously with the new Prime Minister Takaichi, it's going to be an issue for her because it resonates with the people of Japan. The abductee issue, to imagine that North Korea went into these countries and just took out these citizens, abducted these citizens, and so forth. So that I thought that was very, very well done, and that shows a lot of compassion and a lot of interest. So we will continue to work with Japan on that issue. But let me mention the absence of a dialogue on Taiwan and the South China Sea really struck me, especially in the recent purges that we saw in Beijing, going back to the plenum a few weeks ago, where the number 2 person on the CMC, the China Military Commission, was replaced. Other generals were replaced. And accused of high crimes and so forth. were we remiss in not talking about Taiwan? Should we have put the freedom of navigation on the docket when we talk about the South China Sea? Because there is a UN resolution, a UN tribunal that concluded that the 9 line doesn't apply, and China's reasoning does not hold. So did we miss an opportunity of messaging our concern about what's happening in Taiwan with the attempted intimidation of the people of Taiwan, and what's happening certainly with the Philippines, but indeed with the whole of the South China Sea?
I think it depends on the tactics that one would choose. If we're determined to have a quote good meeting, and if we were determined to find some way to have a dialogue with China, even if the gains we got in the summit are only programmed to last for a year, and some are questionable anyway, but at least if you want to be an optimist, I think you can say that we established a method of dialogue, and raising a tariff, decreasing a tariff, those are all parts of the dialogue, and it's a way that I guess we can live with China. As far as not making Taiwan an issue in this, I think it may have been kept off the table for reasons that we wanted to at least get something positive out of this, and I think we did with China. As far as missing an opportunity, we all remember the era when China started dredging the South China Sea and destroying some 3,000 acres of coral in order to build those outposts in the South China Sea. And President Jin-Ping looked President Obama in the eye at the Sunnyland Summit and said he would not militarize these features, and then promptly established 3,000-meter runways, deep water ports, bunkers, anti-aircraft weapons, all the other things to make these into dangerous outputs. The Philippines, as you know, was brought a case to the United Nations Court of Arbitration. Vietnam signed on in sympathy with the Philippines in this case, and the United States kept a thunderous silence about this. A year or so later, the UN came down with a decision in favor of the Philippines, and the U.S. still remains silent. So we have a long trail of missed opportunities here. And the latest, of course, is China's increasing destruction of the existing guidelines that had previously governed where Chinese aircraft went, where Chinese ships went, and and the same thing for Taiwan. And now the median line is all but gone, and Taiwan is visited with ever more frequent harassment and encroachment on their territories. Rhetoric's not going to do any good. We're going to be forced to a decision somewhere in this term of presidency about whether we start a more energetic aid program, military assistance program to Taiwan than we have heretofore. As you know from your past experience, just speeding up the foreign military sales process and the Taiwan arms sales processes would speak volumes, and we're sending the wrong message with all these delays. Just eliminating those delays would provide a higher level of deterrence and a higher level of security for Taiwan. But this problem is not over, obviously.
Well said, General Gregson. I couldn't agree with you more. Just outstanding. I'm sorry we've run out of time. Ambassador, let me just say, Dr. Mansourov, I know, had some very good follow-on questions, but we've run out of time. This has just been an outstanding discussion with someone who really knows the region so well. And we've been very fortunate to have you here with us this afternoon, General Gregson. So thank you for what you continue to do to keep our country and And as you continue to work so hard on our alliance and partners, keep them very close to heart. Stay well.
Thank you for the kind words, Ambassador.
You stay well.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Michael Jenkins, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ambassador DeTrani. Another excellent program. General Gregson, can't thank you enough. We learned so much today. And Dr. Mansourov, always you give us deep insights and we go forward. We are very concerned that the founder of the Washington Times is now being held in prison in South Korea. And we want to ask your help and support to address that. There's no evidence that she's committed any crimes. There's no material or tangible recorded evidence whatsoever that she instructed people to do something inappropriate. But we're working on that together. We do have the support of the Secretary of State and also the White House, and there is good developments going on there. But these things do happen, and part of it's because we're standing strongly through the Washington Times and our Washington Brief and other aspects of this organization to fight against communism and to stop the expansion of totalitarianism. So we think it'll all come together in the end, but want to thank all of you, especially Dr. Mansourov, Joe, and Chip. Great program. Washington Times will definitely be covering this and will give a good message to Korea. I think we're in a very good direction right now with Japan, and hopefully Korea will come around to where we really would like to see the alliance strengthened and also move in a direction that's beneficial to all of Northeast Asia and the world. But thank you again, and thank you to our audience. We'll be right back next time. God bless all.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
This webcast is pre-recorded.